Musmola Umoru is still here with me in the studios, and we're looking at nurturing the succession generation of Nigeria farmers. Thank you so much for staying around.
Thank you.
Well, just before we went on that break, I actually teased you a little bit about having mentorship programs, you know, to try to encourage youths to be part of this transformation agenda. And you found it quite funny. Are you a mentor? Do you mentor people?
Yes, I do mentor people. Abira was actually set up as a mentoring platform to not only get young people engaged in the sector, but also hold them by the hand. And that I found very interesting because from experience, most of the things that I have achieved have been as a result of the support I have gotten from mentors, and I thought that the only way I could pay forward within the society was to create a platform where young people, when they do come into the sector, can actually find support to go through. And that's why our name is Abira Agribusiness Support Initiative. We focus mainly on getting young people started, and we also look at working with them through the course of the journey. So there's a program to actually, there's an incubation program for about 6 to 8 months, where they are taking around the aspect of agriculture they want to go through. So if you want to go into primary production, which is core farming, we have a site in Ogun State where we will take the young people to, and they would be on the program.
Well, are these programs actually enough, these mentorship programs? Do we have enough of them around?
We do not have enough, and I believe that one of the recommendations we did make for the agripreneurs is to find more structured agribusinesses to absorb these young startups in their businesses, to actually have visitations to sites, actually be able to have a coach. Under the UWIN plan, there is a mentoring platform, and we're hoping that as they look into designing the agric UWIN plan as well, there would be a mentoring platform where the young agropreneurs will be supported by existing Nigerian established agropreneurs.
So I was actually going to ask you, is there any connection between this initiative, that's the Youth Employment in Agricultural Program, and the UWIN program?
Well, they're both federal government initiatives. I'm hoping that they would borrow ideas one from the other as the programs roll out.
Are all aspects of agriculture covered in this, program, as food crop, cash crop, poultry, fish farming, and animal husbandry? Do you think?
Yes, it would be covered because our areas of interest differs. So it would be it's tailor-made to support a young person who is coming into the agricultural space, irrespective of the area you want to focus on: fish, aquaculture, poultry, crop production. Processing and packaging. It really would it cuts across. It cuts across.
Well, looking at the policies now, forget the fact that you're an agripreneur. The policies actually cut across the board. Do you think these policies are flexible for anybody who is interested in getting into agribusiness?
It's a work in progress. Before now, I would say a lot of the policies aren't favorable. For instance, you look at the poultry sector. Yes, there is a seeming ban on importation, for instance, but who actually makes that effective? The local poultry farmers are still suffering as a result of the huge importation of poultry products. So I would say that beyond just creating policies, I think that it's time we begin to look at implementing the policies effectively and ensuring that it impacts positively on the sector as a whole.
When you say we're looking at how these policies are implemented, who should we be because we know that the federal government is really, really very passionate about this. What about other agencies, intergovernmental collaborations to ensure that these policies actually work as well as they should?
I think that as the federal government comes up with policies, they need to carry along stakeholders, and that includes their own agencies and parastatals. For instance, a lot of young people do complain about the challenges we face, for instance, with one of the major government agencies, which is NAFDAC, where you, for instance, would say that a micro and small enterprise would require the same regulation as a conglomerate like PZ, Pfizer, Mayer, Baker. It begins to limit growth. So I would love to see a situation whereby the policies are actually revisited and then the personnel actually within this organizations are also their knowledge is brought to a book. I mean, they're updated, they're carried along.
That's improved human capital development.
Yes, across the government agencies. It would help a lot.
So, how much of the state and local government collaboration are we seeing in this initiative, this agripreneurship thing? You know, because we know that they are closer to the grassroots where farming takes place, and we have a lot of youths in the rural areas who are actually very interested in contributing more than they're doing right now in the growth of agribusiness.
It's early days. There are few states who have plugged into the process, like Kano State.
Okay.
I would commend the efforts of the Commissioner of Agriculture in that state, who has taken the pain to actually get the women actively involved. And what they do is they have a program where the children of the women are also being tutored. And you know what that will do is that it's trickling down from the federal to the state, and within each local community, you're actually getting the young people involved in the process.
Okay.
It will be nice to see a lot more collaborative initiatives across the states in that direction. That will actually impact greatly on the
program.
The program.
Well, we're talking about how many youths. You know, we're having a lot of youths. You know, being active in this program. Do you know how the selection process usually is, and how many have been selected right now?
Right now, I do not have the data.
Okay.
Like I said, it's new. It's just been launched. The communique isn't out fully.
All right.
We're just privileged because we had been identified when they were going across the states as being people who already have established businesses.
Okay, so what are the selection, process, or what was the criteria?
Well, for starters, you have to be a Nigerian, and secondly, you have to be between the age bracket 18 and 40.
Okay.
It would have been 35, but the ministry made a case for a lot of people between the 36 and 40 age bracket who would love to come into the sector and who would be able to go through the rigors of setting up an agri business.
All right.
So those are two major criteria. And for starters, I know that there's no restriction on formal education.
All right.
So whether you have a formal education is not particularly relevant at the early stage. We all will be put on the program, but I believe that what they've suggested is that they would separate those who do not have formal education from those who have informal education, and we won't be lumped together. So that, I believe, is how they plan to set off this. Over the next 3 months, I believe better information will come out from the Ministry of Agriculture,
yeah,
and we will all be able to understand the process a bit more.
All right. So in terms of human capacity development, are we going to see more of that in the sector?
I am privy to know that agencies like the World Bank is also putting in some fund in this project to actually get training and capacity building for established businesses laid out. I did talk to the guy who would head that program, and he had mentioned to me that they will be coming to the businesses and actually identifying the gaps, and each person would be helped based on the gap they find within your organization.
So there won't be any segregation of any sort, because it's not everybody that will probably have the opportunity to roll in some particular circles where all of this can be shared. So they can avail themselves to the nearest where are we talking about the nearest?
The state chapters, the state commissions of agriculture and the local government. What the federal government, what the Federal Ministry of Agriculture has done is to actually also send directors from the federal ministry to the state chapters, commissions of agriculture, and they will be working together to actually ensure that they can comb through the local government areas and understand. I mean, at the summit, you would notice that people came from different the Nagropreneur panel, we were from different geopolitical zones, and that would also be focused on greatly. So it's not going to be, it's a South-South or it's a Southwest program. So
because a lot of people will be thinking about it.
The way it's been designed is to go across the country, across the region. And I think that brings some uniqueness to it. Even within the ministry, what they have also done is actually they're institutionalizing the youth division. So they have young people who are now working within the ministry to educate and inform the ministry about the real needs of young people. So I believe it's going to be a win-win situation if all the plans is actually implemented.
Well, you talked about access to land and access to credit. Yes. Now, how much have the banks signified, as how much interest have the banks signified in helping to encourage agripreneurs? Now that we know that as much as possible, that's the federal government's passion at this particular point in time.
I know that the federal government is ensuring that all the banks do set aside a certain percentage of their profits to actually invest in agriculture. And one of the recommendations that came out strongly at the 19th Economic Summit is that the tax funds actually be put together again. The fund is fully utilized, and I know that they're recommending that it be set up again and recapitalized. And if that is done, it means that a lot of us will be able to access funding at single-digit interest rates.
Yes, that's what a lot of people are actually looking forward to that.
That's the only way to go.
I can imagine. Now, another issue that, I'm very, very finicky about food, and I easily lose interest if I have to eat a particular thing over and over again. But, sometimes we've actually seen people, come up with innovative ideas of merging two fruits together and giving you the most interesting of varieties. Now, are we doing enough in terms of research and development?
We aren't, actually. I've got to be fair with you. But I guess at this point when we get more young people like you involved in the sector, what we would see is those creative ideas will begin to come to play. What you want to do is not segregate your young populace out of that sector. When you bring them in, they come in with novel ideas. What I have seen over the last 2 years is more young people set up smoothie bars, fruit bars, and we're going to see a lot of that happen.
What about
the
let's go down to, just before we get to the smoothie bars and the rest of it,
primary production.
Exactly.
Yeah, you see, it's the information out there. People are beginning to get actually health conscious, and with that, you would see more people actually combine their food properly. I know of 2 young people who go through schools and they work with primary school children to actually look into their diets and pick the food right. So you want to have a carb and a protein, and you want to ensure that you have some fruit and fiber alongside every meal. So as we start the orientation, as we start the mindset change, what you will see is that we begin to demand for more qualitative food. The average Nigerian today is happy to go to a grocery store like ShopRite to pick what they eat, because the flies aren't perching, the environment is neat, and more people will begin to buy into that.
But are we actually doing enough in terms of research?
We aren't actually. Our institutions they're trying. We must give it to them, but a lot of them complain that they're not sufficiently funded. So I believe that as the federal government begins to look into putting more funds into these agencies, then we will get that area of operations.
You need passion to make a success of any enterprise. Absolutely. Are we sure that these youths have the passion for agriculture?
Now, I personally have huge passion for agriculture, and what that is doing is with the Abira program, we're actually looking into mentoring more people to see that if you love food, you can't come into the sector. Young people some young people are scared that, what if I get started? Would I fail midway? So that's where mentoring and coaching comes to play. I've been at this 9 years. Only passion could have helped me stay through. Okay. It goes beyond wanting money. It goes beyond wanting to feed people. It's something that is innate. It's something that I enjoy. And the truth is that so many young people out there who love to get their hands dirty, who love to engage, who would love to be in the sector, but they're just scared. So now what we would see is role models come out to actually make farming and agriculture look glam enough for them to actually take the plunge. And
is this a sustainable program?
Yes, it is a sustainable program.
If we're talking about the medium to long term, because the short term, everybody comes in very excited, they want to be in this agribusiness thingy, and then they do it for between 5 to 10 years. After that, they lose interest. In the medium to long term,
in the medium to long term, what I would love to see people focus on is understand that we need to feed our nation, we need to stay healthy, and we can't depend on importation for our food source. And if those are the things that we focus on in the long term, we can sustain the drive of building the agricultural sector in Nigeria and beyond. It would impact on us financially. So you create wealth. It's not just about food security. It's about nutritional security. It's about financial security as well.
Thank you so much, Musonmola.
Thank you for having me.
For joining us on the program today. I always seem to be getting your name in a twist, but thank you so much for joining me on the program today. It's been quite informative, and I'm very sure the conversation isn't quite over. We're going to still be talking about all of this in the not too distant